Okay, it's recording. Live on Facebook. Preparing live streaming preview. All right, come on. Okay.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Thiirds Football Podcast, the 4th edition, championship weekend review edition. I missed last week, so welcome back to me as well. Matt, my trusty partner here. I am your host, Randy Hammond. Matt, how are you doing this week?
Doing good, Randy. A little bit tired. A lot of football to talk about, but I'm excited. Let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, like I said, cold here in upstate New York after me not being around the cold, so a little soft, but I'm indoors, ready to talk about football, ready to do this. So we have a great show planned for you guys today. We're going to recap the AFC and NFC championship games. We have a couple of unique segments for you. One titled "Who is Happier," and the other one titled one is us talking about our own personal NFL heroes. And if you notice my surroundings, you can kind of tell where I'm getting at with that. Even though he played for a different sport, we'll get to our football heroes in just a little bit. So, Matt, it was certainly an exciting weekend in football. Championship weekend is always a great weekend. And the first game certainly did not disappoint. Let's jump right into the AFC Championship game. The Tennessee Titans storming into Arrowhead in Kansas City after two massive upsets, going into Foxborough and defeating the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots, and then defeating the number 1 overall seed, the MVP, Lamar Jackson, and the Baltimore Ravens. And the Titans looked like it early in this game, Matt, that they were going to do it again. They hopped out to a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. What did you think about the start of this game?
I thought it was textbook Tennessee. They really controlled the line of scrimmage. Ryan Tannehill made some big throws that I was thoroughly impressed with. And I thought it was really, the momentum was really with Tennessee. Kansas City off to another sluggish start. And I kind of thought Tennessee has the right formula, especially when they went up by another 10 points, Randy, when they went up 17-7, and we'll get to Kansas City's touchdown as well. But it just seemed like, all right, this is where you need to start running the football, run it, take control of the game. And that's where I was at that point.
Yeah, it really felt like that they were going to do what they've done to this point. They were going to run the ball, control the clock, play tough defense. They weren't going to let you do what you wanted to do. And it's a tough, hard-nosed, old-school physical football. And to the Chiefs' credit, I mean, not really to the Chiefs' credit, but this is the second straight game the Chiefs have gotten down by double digits in the first quarter. And I don't know what the deal is with the sluggish starts, but after being down 10-0, after Derrick Henry's wildcat rushing touchdown to go up 10, the Chiefs would take as much time as they did in the divisional round. They answered quickly. They had a 10-play, 74-yard touchdown drive, and they were right back in this one in a flash. What did you think about that answer?
It's just amazing what the Chiefs can do when they – I don't want to say they have their backs against the wall, because it never really feels like they're out of the game. We learned that last week with Houston, when they were down 24-0. And it just felt like, man, Houston's running away with this game. And then kind of what Vince and I talked about last week was, man, you kind of felt it when O'Brien didn't go for it on 4th and 1 and he kicked the field goal. The momentum shifted.
Mm-hmm.
With this game, I didn't feel like Tennessee ran the football nearly enough. It always kind of felt like, all right, this game is there for Tennessee. Establish the ground game. 1st and 10, you saw Derrick Henry get 3 or 4 yards, and then they went to passing on second down. And I know you want to change it up, but you're not surprising anybody at this point with who you are. You're the Tennessee Titans. You ground and pound and you play defense and you control the possession game against the Chiefs to win this game. That was the formula. And I think Henry had 19 rushing yards throughout this game. I'm sorry, 19 rush attempts, which is not nearly enough. And Tannehill passed for 32 times, which is too much for my liking.
Yeah. And I mean, considering how well Henry played against the Chiefs earlier this year, he had a big game. I believe he rushed for nearly 200 yards. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but he really dominated the Chiefs. I know that was a road game in Tennessee, but you really thought they would have tried to duplicate that formula. It's not like the Chiefs have this stout run defense. So I'm really surprised that Tennessee didn't just stick to the mold with their game plan. But to the Chiefs' credit, they really did focus and do a good job of containing Derrick Henry. Like you said, he only had 19 rushing attempts, but I think part of that is that the Chiefs stacked the box and said, we're going to make you have Ryan Tannehill beat us. I feel like that they hit him as many times as you could possibly hit him, and I don't care how big you are and how, I mean, when it's cold and you get hit a certain amount of times, it's going to affect you. I think the Chiefs rose to the challenge. I think Tyrann Mathieu was a huge part of that. I think he accepted the challenge. Frank Clark did a little too much talking for my liking ahead of the game, but to his credit, he backed it up too. The Chiefs really did answer the bell on that one, and I didn't think they had it in them. So a big time credit to them. Derrick Henry finished with just 70 rushing yards, I believe, in this game. What did you think about the effort from the Chiefs defense?
I thought it was a great game plan by, I believe, Steve Spagnuolo, who's now their defensive coordinator. So they played a lot of cover one or one deep safety to really kind of control the line of scrimmage with 8 in the box, sometimes 7. And you really saw it had the effect of containing Henry. It didn't feel like he broke out any big runs, but it was 3-4 yards per carry. Mostly he was on schedule. And I know 19 for 69 is not a great number, but usually what you see in those kind of games is when you keep on pounding the defensive line, you keep on pounding the run and instilling your will upon your opponent, you're going to break one a little bit later. And it just really felt like once they got out of their realm, being down, when the Chiefs scored that first touchdown, we talked about it. I think you said it was a 10-play drive for how many?
74 yards in just 5 minutes.
Yeah, how do you guard against something like that? And then you feel that momentum shift, and then you saw them jump back 17-7, but then the Chiefs went on a 28-0 run. I mean, that's what's so mind-boggling about this team. You can play almost a perfect half of football to your game plan, and then all of a sudden the Chiefs start coming roaring back, and it comes down to just too many weapons. How do you defend this team?
Yeah. I mean, well, like you said, you could play the perfect half. And honestly, I think the Titans really did do a good job of executing their game plan. They came out and they did wanted to do besides, I mean, maybe they should have run the ball a little more than we would have liked. They should have run the ball more, but they really did. They run the ball well, and they had a 10-point lead at one point in the first half. But to be down 4 at halftime, I think that had to be so demoralizing considering how well that they played and the mistakes that the Chiefs made. You brought up a penalty point earlier that the Chiefs just were playing sloppy football. And for the for the Titans to go into the halftime down 4, what do you think morale was like in the locker room at that point?
I think it was pretty devastating knowing that you had the game there for you, and then all of a sudden you start letting Mahomes do Mahomes things, and you didn't stop them from scoring. Although you could look at it from their perspective, like, okay, we're only down 4. We were up 17-7. We know what we can do. Let's try to go out there. But I think the team knew in the back of their minds that Kansas City cracked their code. I mean, to talk about the penalty point, the Chiefs were the 7th most penalized team in the NFL this year with, I believe, 116. So,
Yeah.
and it never feels like this team, like we talked about, a 3rd and 25. Are the Chiefs worried about a 3rd and 25? No.
Not with that speed. Not with that speed.
No,
Uh,
yeah, and they can hit you from everywhere. They can hit you in the middle with Kelsey. They can hit you on the outside with Hill, who, I mean, you almost have to play a safety over the top and a corner. You have to double team the kid. And then Watkins is showing why he got paid that big money. And then I like McCoy too. I think McCoy is a great asset out of that short screen, short backfield dump off passes when everyone has to drop back because you have to guard Hill and Watkins on the deep routes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Hardman, who can burn down the field as well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's demoralizing.
Yeah, and that's the best word I have for it too. Just how well the Titans played and still be down by 4. It's demoralizing, and it's a good transition into how this happened. And you just touched on a lot of it, though. The Chiefs just have so many weapons. There's just you could try to double team Tyreek Hill, but then you have Travis Kelce running over the middle wide open. You could try to double team Travis Kelce, but then you have Tyreek Hill, then you have Sammy Watkins, then you have Mikael Hardman, then you have Demarcus Robinson, and then so I was impressed with Damian Williams. He didn't have the most impressive stat sheet in the world, but he had 94 yards from scrimmage. He must have picked up 10 first downs, and he had a rushing touchdown. So to get the production that they get from these guys and just their overall speed is so impressive. And I believe you have a take that might be controversial, but I don't think it's that far-fetched about the Chiefs offense, right, Matt?
Yeah, I've brought this out to the football group, and some people wanted to dispute it, which is fine. But I think we're witnessing the greatest offensive team in NFL history. I don't think when you talk about teams, and I'm talking about more so over a lifespan, not like one season, because obviously that 2007 Patriots team was unreal. But even that team, it's like that 2007 Patriots. Oh, and let's give them Gronkowski a little bit early because that is what this is like. It's unfair that you have to try to guard Watkins, Hill. Like you said, I like Robinson as a fourth option. Some teams he
Yeah.
would be a number two. Nicole Hardman, he the kid is going to be unreal, and how fast he is. He's only a rookie. And then Kelce, what can you say about Kelce? You can't defend a team, and it's just you have the perfect quarterback that can man this team. And this is kind of where I'm at with Mahomes. I kind of threw out the idea that he may be the greatest quarterback that we'll ever see. Um, and I know it's really outlandish, and I know it's out there, but my thought process is this: this kid is not even 24 years old yet. He's still 23. Already has one MVP under his belt, is going to a Super Bowl. That offense is locked up for a while. No one's really going anywhere offensively. The only team, and this is kind of where we get into the greatest quarterback, because the greatest quarterback that I think ever played football up to this point is probably Peyton Manning. And that's for his cerebral ability to diagnose defenses before the snap. It was unreal, and no one's come close to that in the history of the NFL. But Manning does not have the arm talent that Mahomes has.
Not many guys do.
No, I mean, it's rare. And you throw in the Brett Favre aspect to Mahomes, who can throw it from different angles, makes plays out of nothing, is mobile. Manning really couldn't roll out of the pocket that well. I mean, he could if needed be, but it wasn't something that you saw. He was more generated in the pocket. Mahomes can throw it from anywhere. He has an innate feel to feel pressure. You build the perfect quarterback. The only thing that may miss from Mahomes' games is being able to see the defense, but that looks like that's coming along nicely for him.
Yeah.
So, and I would say the only team that you can compare for, 4 or 5 seasons are those Colts teams with Marvin Harrison, Edgerrin James, Reggie Wayne, and Dallas Clark. And even then, I may take the Chiefs' weapons over them.
It's an interesting conversation because those Colts teams have obviously Peyton Manning, Hall of Famers on the outside, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, Joseph Adai, Edgerrin James at running backs were no slouches by any means either. Dallas Clark, certainly a playmaker at tight end. To me, the greatest offense I ever saw was the '07 Patriots. They went undefeated. I mean, how can you dispute that? But they had Randy Moss, and the rest of it was just like Wes Welker had caught a lot of balls in the slot, but they didn't have like a stud tight end. They didn't have like an all-time backfield. Their system was great. Their quarterback played at a level that we had never seen before at that point, and their defense was all-time great. So I mean, they had a lot of things going for them. And considering they have a top 2 wide receiver all time, having an insane season, he broke a Jerry Rice record, which is seemingly impossible to do these days. Yeah. So to me, I think it's an interesting argument. I think that this era certainly helps offensive football. So I want to just calm down on the greatest offense ever. But to your point, they are so deep with their weapons. Sammy Watkins seems to be an afterthought. he was the 4th overall pick in the draft in 2013, and he might be like the 5th best receiver in that draft class. He had a great game week 1 and then pretty much disappeared for the rest of the season. This game, he had 7 catches for 114 yards and a touchdown. And I mean, where do you go? Who do you make them go to? I mean, I almost feel like you begged them to put McCoy in and hope that he looks slow. I think that's your best bet. But to your point about Patrick Mahomes, he is what really makes everything tick here. This offense is not as good with Alex Smith. It was certainly good with Alex Smith. It is not this good with Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes, to me, and I know a lot of people feel a certain sort of way about Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers at his peak in 2011 was one of the best quarterbacks I had ever seen. Patrick Mahomes is, I think, Aaron Rodgers on roids. He, combined with a little bit of Brett Favre, because of the arm angles and the arm talent and the kind of like freestyle, like moving around in the pocket and the scrambling and using his legs. Like, he is incredible. Like, he is the most fun. I mean, I know we talked about how much we love Lamar in our first podcast, but Patrick Mahomes is truly reminding us that I'm the guy who threw for 50 touchdowns in my first season. I'm the guy who won the MVP. I am the best quarterback of this generation, and I'm going to prove it. Like you said, I'm 23 years old, and I'm already the best player in the sport. And I got to say, the run that he had, that for a touchdown was, and I don't want to be hyperbole, and I don't want to be a recency bias, but I think that was the play of the year. He nonchalantly rolls out to the left, pauses, jukes out of the defender, runs up the sideline, spins, breaks another tackle, bounces off another tackle, and dives into the end zone. Like, that's a play a running back should make. That's a Marshawn Lynch type play. And he is the quarterback who's not even really known to be that mobile. To me, he is on another level right now, and I just love watching him play football.
Yeah, and I have to take issue with a couple of comments we're getting from our dear friend Henry Maldonado over here, calling me Rob Jarowski. If anyone doesn't know who Ron Jarowski is, he was superlative. But Henry, I'm coming at you with this one. Mahomes, what does he do bad in the NFL? Like, you see his footwork. It's not great, but it doesn't affect his throws. I mean, you wouldn't teach his throwing style, but he's the most effective quarterback in the NFL. He does things that you won't see do. And we go back, he's 23 years old. That matters. He hasn't seen every defense out there, and it's amazing that when we'll touch on the Super Bowl a little bit later, but yeah, that's going to be his biggest test, I think, of his career. It's going to be an interesting matchup, and that's for later on. But everyone has to understand the arm talent you have to have as a pitcher, and then to take that in the quarterback. His arm strength is incredible. He can throw when guys are at his knees. He can throw when guys are at his upper body. He feels the pressure. Like you talked about that touchdown run, it was amazing what this kid can do, and he's only going to get smarter. And you add the experience on top of it. And I think we're underplaying the mastermind behind all of it. Talking about Andy Reid here, who has coached offense under the Bill Walsh era, has seen it under Mike Holmgren, who coached Favre. So Andy Reid is very well versed in how to make this offense the best in the NFL, and he's done a masterful job.
Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of quarterbacks under Andy Reid perform at a high level. You saw it with Donovan McNabb. You saw it with Alex Smith. You've seen it with a lot of guys. And Nick Foles threw for 27 touchdowns and 2 picks in 1 year with under Andy Reid. He's just a really great offensive mind. And I don't want to say it's all Patrick Mahomes, because I think he benefits from having Andy Reid, because I believe you've said in the past that if he were drafted by the Bears, he might not be this guy. So situation is everything in the NFL, and I'm not trying to display that. Just for the sake of timing here, Patrick Mahomes finished with 23 of 35, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, a touchdown run, QBR 97.5, QB rating of 120.4. So not the most perfect passer rating ever, but guy makes plays, and I certainly enjoyed his performance on Sunday. So Kansas City Chiefs, for the first time in 50 years, making the Super Bowl. It was awesome to see. I was really happy for that fan base. Tanner, I know you're watching. I'm really happy for you. AFC Championship trophy named after the owner, Lamar Hunt. So cool moment over there in Arrowhead. The second game, a little less drama, basically over from the beginning. But we'll talk about it extensively, because the 49ers have had one of the quickest turnarounds that I can remember, going from 4-12 to I believe they were 13-3, the number one overall seed, and now they're in the Super Bowl. They were up 27-0 at halftime, and they dominated this game from the very beginning. Matt, what did you think of at the start of this game?
You know how you get those weird feelings in the morning, like you kind of predict all week that it's going to be a close game. You know, you see two really good defenses go against each other. And I was kind of talking to Felipe throughout the week about this game, Felipe Milicio, who's another admin. And it didn't, Sunday morning, I woke up and I'm like, man, I don't see any way the Packers can win this game. I mean, the offense hasn't been that good all year. They were 23rd against the run. And as you're watching this game, it's kind of like that Simpsons meme where it's like, oh my God, stop it. He's dead already.
Yeah,
That's kind of what this game felt like. Like they went
yeah,
off tackle, off tackle, off tackle, off tackle, off tackle, off tackle, sweep outside on this 49ers defense all day. And you knew it was coming. You could see Morstead. All right, he's going out, sweep, boom, 20 yards, then 50 yards here or there. And it's 300 total yards rushing. I mean, as a defense, you allow 300 yards rushing, you just need to hand it in because that is awful. I, the offense had no answers against that 49ers pass rush. Aaron Rodgers, it's time to move on from Aaron Rodgers being an elite quarterback. He's still
no,
very, very good, but in that top five category, I don't see it anymore. And then
yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, that four-man front for the 49ers, they go 34, 43, most of the time we talked about it. You play nickel, which is five defensive backs for the majority of your defensive snaps. With Bosa, Buckner, D Ford, I'm forgetting a name here, and I feel bad about it, but those guys get after the quarterback like none other. They're amazing.
Yeah, their front four and their whole defensive front seven and their secondary all around is incredible. I'll say this: I'm pretty mad at myself when it comes to this game because I wasn't on the pod last week, so I didn't get to give any official predictions. But on my Twitter account at RandyTHJ, if you're interested, I did tweet out a prediction of the games, and I said I thought the Packers could win in a close game. I believed in Aaron Rodgers, and I believed in it just I don't know, maybe it's his allure, maybe it's like I still believed that he was an elite quarterback, and I still think he is a great quarterback. I'm not trying to say that he's not, but to me, the Packers have shown all season that they are a soft football team, and I just ignored that in my decision making process. The Niners were absolutely a bad matchup for Green Bay, and I just did not even take that into consideration. And I apologize to all the Niners fans. It's not that I did not believe in you. I kind of don't believe in Jimmy Garoppolo, but we could talk about that in a little bit. But the Packers, to me, from the very beginning, they won the coin toss. They deferred. They got to stop. They got a 3-and-out from the 49ers. So it's like, okay, I felt pretty good at that point. The Packers, I believe, get a first down, and then they're going. It's third and two, I should say, and they had a wide open receiver to the right when they could have easily just walked past the first down marker and moved the chains. Instead, they do this cute little like jet sweep to their backup running back, not even to Aaron Jones. And the linebacker makes a great play, stuffs them from behind the line of scrimmage, and then at that point, the route was on. I think they squandered the momentum before they even had a chance to get any of it. So the Packers had made a lot of mishaps in this game. They were heavily penalized. They were not ready to play. They had so many missed tackles, and they had. And I'm not trying to say that the Packers defense isn't good. It's okay, but they are soft. They're not a good run defense, and the Packers offense did not help the defense in this game. You cannot have 3 turnovers, and you're setting the tone that you cannot handle that defense. And whether they could or not, you certainly didn't show up for this game. And I think that to me is an explanation of the rookie head coach who might not have been ready, completely got outschooled by one of his former peers, and Kyle Shanahan, who had a game plan of a lifetime, who knew the Packers defense was soft and said, I'm going to run this down your throat, and you're not, until you stop it, I'm not just gonna move away from that, because Jimmy Garoppolo was 6 of 8 for 70 yards passing, which is unheard of. But to me, Aaron Rodgers had 2 interceptions and a lost fumble, was just 3 of the many Packers mishaps in this game, Matt. I got to say that the Packers really just kind of made this domination easy for the 49ers at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo dynamic. Kyle Shanahan, I give a lot of credit because a lot of offensive coaches, it's not sexy and it's not fun per se to run the football. Fans want to see, the 50-yard pass, the 20-yard, the big chunk plays. But when you're ripping off runs and you see that defense cannot stop you, I mean, that's coach of the year stuff right there. To let your own ego get out of the way and just be like, you know what? I'll call the same play 10 times in a row because I know they can't stop it. That's how
100%.
you win. Yeah, that's how you win games. It's not by these gadget plays and these trick plays. You find the defense's weakness and you keep on attacking it until they can prove that you can stop it. And throughout this entire game, you saw it time after time after time again that Kyle Shanahan knew what the Packers couldn't do, and he exploited it at every single turn. I don't want to say it's an indictment on Jimmy Garoppolo, but it kind of shows you, we like you, we think that you can manage the game, but we're not going to let you throw it 30 times. It's just not going to happen.
And I also think Kyle Shanahan has learned from his past demons. He was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons when they blew that 25-point lead. And the one thing that he probably regrets is that he did not run the ball not one time
Yep.
when they were in scoring position. And I think he, maybe to prove a point, to say that he's gotten over this, is that until they stop this, I'm gonna continue to do it. And I think it's a credit to him. Like you said, he swallowed his pride and he obviously had a correct game plan to attack the Packers.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that statement more.
One guy, well, I mean, it's hard to deny who the player of the game would be if there was an individual player. A guy who was playing on his seventh NFL team at running back, Raheem Mostert, had 29 carries for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns. The 220 yards is a 49ers record. I believe it is second all-time in postseason history for a running back, just behind John Riggins. Are you kidding me? Who is this guy, and how have the Niners made him so effective?
Well, first off, I'll start off by George Kittle, not Greg Kittle, but Ron Kittle used to be a great White Sox hitter back in the 70s and 80s. But back to George Kittle, we talked about Mahomes being a really great quarterback. I mean, I think it's time that we recognize Kittle as probably the best tight end in football right now. He can block in line. He can run superior routes. He does a lot of things that makes this 49ers offense go, and you almost have to double team him almost every play. And that takes toll on the run game because he
Yeah.
really sets that edge. He sucks in that outside linebacker or defensive end to lose outside contain. And let's give the 49ers offensive line a little bit of credit here. I mean, they just stuck their nose in there and they just moved the line of scrimmage every play to give them those options. I don't want to say, Morstead um, is not a great running back. I mean, he's not well known. He's not a household name, and maybe he never will be. But for this team, he works. And we see situations where players join teams and it just clicks. And then when they leave said team, they kind of disappear. Um, I'm more inclined to give credit to the offensive line and Kittle being able to really make that Packers defense respect them and fear them going deep, especially with Emmanuel Sanders. So,
Yeah. I brought up a couple weeks ago that I thought Kittle was the best tight end in the league and the most Gronk-like, where even if he's not involved in the passing game, he certainly affects the running game with his ability to block defensive ends and get in there and get into the nitty-gritty in the trenches. And obviously, the running game is so big for the Niners. They're the best rushing attack besides the Ravens in the NFL this season. Um, I don't know. I like Mostert, but to me, I'm not a big running back guy, as you know. I think that running back is a position that relies on other positions to make them successful. We agree that the game of football is one of the trenches, and by all means, the 49ers dominated on the offensive and defensive ends of this game. In the comment section, I just want to touch on Facebook Live right now. They wanted us to touch on Aaron Rodgers' fumble with the snap when they were in scoring position and him not making much of an effort to dive onto the football, which I saw this going around Twitter. I don't think it's like a crazy big deal. I don't think it's like Cam Newton in the Super Bowl big deal because I think like the ball was right there for the taking for Cam Newton. I think Rodgers had like 10 people around the ball, like giant linemen in the way, where the point where like he literally couldn't, like, as he's falling back, jump forward to try to get to the ball. I don't think it's as big of a deal. I think it's bad that he bobbled the snap and muffed the snap, obviously, but I don't think there's much controversy necessarily that he didn't try to dive on the football. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't buy much into the theory that he could have had it. Three reasons why. One, he is backpedaling. He's trying to get out of there quickly. Why? Because that defensive line is bearing down on him, and he knows how good they are. So every step counts. So, the law of physics, when you have momentum going one way, to stop that and then go forward is, a tough task. It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah,
Then,
and I think like the speed of that whole situation is something that we don't really understand. That all happens pretty quickly.
yep. And we have to give Rodgers credit for being very cerebral and smart. If he dives, let's say he dives for the football and he gets hurt, who
Yeah,
do they go to? That game, I mean, you sense that the 49ers were, taking over that game. He's out of that game. That game's over. It's not even, there's no hope.
yeah,
So you don't get to 20 points. It just gets from bad to worse. So at the same time, I give Rodgers credit. You have to live to play another down sometimes. And I wouldn't criticize my quarterback for taking care of himself, especially when, you have 32 NFL quarterbacks that start, and maybe half of those guys are debatable to be starters to begin with. And then you get into the very good
yeah.
category where maybe there's 10 guys. So, no, you got to protect yourself and protect your team.
I tend to agree. I just don't think it's the same. Like when Cam Newton in Super Bowl 50, it was a big deal that he didn't dive on the football. I thought that was warranted because I do believe the ball was right there, and there was only him and another guy. I don't think. I think that was I don't know. I think like his heart wasn't all in that one, and I think that's. I don't want to like bash Cam Newton on this segment, but I don't think it's a similar situation. I think that they're completely different experiences, and obviously Rodgers did what he did, and Cam Newton did what he did. One last thing about this game that I want to touch on, which we briefly mentioned earlier, but Jimmy Garoppolo kind of just did a lot of handing off in this game. Like I said earlier, he threw just 8 passes. He finished with, I believe, 70 yards passing. So let's see this final stat line: 6 of 8 for 77 yards. He had one rush for 8 yards, but he had a 104.7 quarterback rating. Obviously, not called on to do a whole lot in this game, considering how well they ran the ball and they dominated. I think the main reason I picked the Green Bay Packers in this game is that I didn't believe in Jimmy Garoppolo. Going forward, should I believe in Jimmy Garoppolo? And what are your thoughts on his performance? And what do you think about him?
I think Garoppolo is probably in that 16 to 32 range when we talk about quarterbacks. He's good enough to start in the NFL, and he should. You could definitely make a case for that. He has some talent, but I've seen him make some incredibly stupid mistakes. Um, he does seem to be turnover prone, loses sight of safeties and linebackers. The interception against the Vikings was a particularly bad one. You have to know where that linebacker's sitting. So you pay attention to that. And then you also just make sure that, you look off coverage. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo, as he gets older, he may be able to do those things. But let's keep in mind, he was 3 years under Brady and Belichick. It's not like this is his, second year in the NFL or third year in the NFL. I believe this is his fifth or sixth.
I
So,
believe it's the sixth.
yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't want to tie in the Bears here, but I will here for this segment. When you see what you saw out of Trubisky 3 years in, that's kind of the standard point. Like after 3 years in the NFL, that's kind of the quarterback of what you expect. So what we've seen from Jimmy Garoppolo in 3 years is that he's going to turn the ball over, not more so than, the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's that mid-range turnover quarterback. He'll throw between 12 and 16 picks a year, and he'll probably give you anywhere between 26 and 32 touchdowns, which, I mean, you'll take. It's not terrible, but it's not elite status. And Jimmy Garoppolo should never be mentioned in the top 10 quarterback conversation.
I do think it's something to be said about the Niners having this quick turnaround. They were 4-12 last year. He got hurt early in the year, tore his ACL in the fourth game, and his return they turned the whole thing around. So I think that has value. I don't ever expect his stats to be as good as Mahomes or as good as Lamar or as good as Deshaun Watson or any of these guys, but I think he has a place in this league, and I think as long as he's paired with a guy like Kyle Shanahan, he will have success. But I don't know, something about it. I just need. I think he will, I believe it or not, show up in the Super Bowl. But I just want to see him put together a pretty good stretch of elite football before I truly believe. I don't know. Maybe it's just the whole Brady exhaustion thing. He's not those guys, but he's certainly an effective quarterback. I will give a
Yeah,
shout
I
out
agree.
before we move on. I will give a shout out to the run game assist to Kyle Juszczyk. they're one of the successful fullback using teams when it comes to the rushing attack. So shout out to Roberto for bringing his name up. That guy blocks every linebacker in his sight. Not a lot of teams use fullbacks consistently, so shout out to that guy. And there we have it. Super Bowl LIV, Super Bowl 54 in Miami. It is the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers. This is going to be an incredible football game. I am so excited for this matchup. Just give me a brief synopsis. Don't give me any predictions or anything. We're going to go into this deeper in a later podcast. But what do you think about this at face value?
I really think that when you take a look at these two teams, it's the perfect opposite. It's elite offense versus elite defense. And then you have a mid-range defense versus a mid-range offense. The 49ers, I think we see their formula. They're going to run it and run it and run it. So it should be interesting to see if the Chiefs can stop the run. I am very interested in seeing how Mahomes handles that 49ers pass rush and if the 49ers are comfortable enough to play cover 3 against this Chiefs offense. I think they're going to have to deviate from that cover 3. They're not going to be able to run it this game. So I'm going to be very interested to see those matchups.
Yeah, I really think the Mahomes versus the Niners defense is the key matchup here, regardless of how you feel about the Chiefs defense or the Niners offense. I think those are the two elite sides of this, the elite Chiefs offense versus the elite Niners defense. I tend to think this game is going to be in the medium scoring range, probably low to mid 20s. I think this game is going to be it has potential to be one of the all-time great Super Bowls. I'm very excited for this matchup. I can't wait. It sucks that we have to wait until next weekend for this game.
Yep.
So, like I said, we're not going to get into predictions because I think me and you, like we said, we wanted to watch a little bit of tape on both of these teams. And next weekend, we are working on a Super Bowl mega podcast, which you can stay tuned for an announcement on that. But we're very excited for the potential of that show as well. But even if that falls through, we will have a Super Bowl show, I'm sure of it. And we'll break down every aspect, every position group, every storyline that there is possible. Hopefully by then there's some lines out. Carl can break down some gambling aspects to this. I'm looking forward to see some of the prop bets. Probably lay down some of those too. So, all right, I'm so excited for Super Bowl 54, but we have to talk about when the Super Bowl MVP. What does the Super Bowl MVP do? What does the Super Bowl MVP do, Matt? When they're walking off the field, say Jim Nantz or Joe Buck or whoever it is, they go up to the guy, say, "Hey, you just won the MVP of the Super Bowl. What are you going to do now?" And what do they always say?
You're going to go to Disney World.
You're going to Disney World. And that's where I was last week. And that's why I missed the third episode of the Deep Thiirds Football Podcast. So that made you come up with this segment that we're going to transition to now. Who was happier? So, Matt, let's get into your options here.
Absolutely. So our first option is going to be this. And in honor of the Kansas City Chiefs finally advancing to the Super Bowl in over 50 years, who was happier? Andy Reid at a championship breakfast buffet or Randy at Disney World?
I tend to be in the belief that if any one of us are at a breakfast buffet, you're probably automatically more happy. And Andy Reid, especially with his statement after the game where he said he celebrated by eating a cheeseburger and then calmly going to sleep afterwards, I think that guy would certainly enjoy a breakfast buffet in Miami wearing a Hawaiian shirt and maybe eating a little bit more bacon than he could probably handle. I had a blast in Disney World. Do not get me wrong. I was a time of my life. I let the kid out in me like never before. But I think I'd rather than Andy Reid clinching a Super Bowl and then just eating at a breakfast buffet. Matt, what about you? What do you think?
I'm a big fan of going places that does not involve Florida. So I would choose the breakfast buffet as well after a championship game.
Yeah, I just tend to think that if you won any sort of championship, in this case, the AFC championship, clinching your second Super Bowl appearance, it's hard for anyone to be happier than you at that point. So I think Andy Reid takes the cake on that one. Do you have any other options for us, or are we getting into our next segment?
Well, I have one more in honor of our 49ers faithful. Was Randy Hammond happier in Disney World than Henry Maldonado Jr. and Roberto Martinez watching the NFC Championship game by halftime?
I saw some things, man. I saw some videos of some things. I could tell you not many times have I been as happy as Henry was. I, I saw some moves from you, big man. I respect it. I can't even blame you. I can't. That's a very happy thing, and I'm happy for you guys. Like I said, a very good time at Disney World. The downside of Disney World is my wallet is not that happy. There are downsides of how much things cost. So I'm going to give the nod once again to our friends in the group who happen to be 49ers fans. And I'd say Tanner is even happier than all of us. I'd say he is ecstatic to beyond belief at this point.
Yeah. So, real quick, I got to. Felipe and Matthew Whelan are asking about prop bets. That will be taken care of next week during our Super Bowl preview show. Hopefully, Carl's able to join us. He wasn't able to join us today, but we will be there and we'll be breaking down prop bets. We'll be talking about all the funny lines and all the crazy things. National anthem, how long is it going to last, and coin flips and all that just jazz.
Yeah. I have a who was happier for you. One more, if you don't mind. Who was happier? Myself at Epcot, drinking around the world, as me and my fiance so pleasantly did, or Mike Vrabel for getting to keep his job.
It's Mike Vrabel. I mean, being able to pee standing up has its benefits.
It really does.
So I think Mike Vrabel being able to keep his dong definitely ranks in one of the happiest moments of anyone's life. That happens to be of the male species.
I mean, he put that on himself, but I think he's not heartbroken that he's not going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think maybe he could just be quiet and hopefully go for it again next year.
Yeah, I think he's okay with that.
All right. So unless you've been living under a rock, we're going to transition to baseball here for just a quick moment. The National Baseball Hall of Fame has elected two guys into the Hall of Fame last night, one of them being Larry Walker, who I think is well-deserved after 10 years being on the ballot. The other player, who I am from New York, my favorite player, my childhood hero, my idol, Derek Sanderson Jeter, getting all but one vote getting into the Hall of Fame last night. So I was a little overwhelmed with joy. I think I was unreasonably happy for some reason. Like, I didn't do anything. I grew up watching this player who made me happy. So to me, look, I was born 5 days before 1991. I graduated from high school in 2010. My whole life, I did not know anything without Derek Jeter in it until 2015. He brought so much joy to me and my family that when he retired, it was almost like it's a whole nother world. Anyway, I live 2 hours away from Cooperstown, New York. I plan on taking that trip to see him. He is my favorite person, not named my mom or my fiance. As you can see behind me, there's a cardboard cutout that I live with in my apartment that is non-negotiable, that my fiance can't stand. But guy was my hero. So that got us thinking. That's obviously baseball, but this is a football podcast. So Matt, we're going to do two NFL heroes of ours that would make us ungodly happy if or when they get inducted to the Hall of Fame. So we're going to do one from our team and one that wasn't our favorite player. That was our favorite player, not on our favorite team. So let's go first. Your favorite Bears player that you would be ungodly happy
about? Well, from growing up as a child, I would definitely. I remember the years of Tom Waddle. Jim Harbaugh probably took a few years off Tom Waddle's career. Andy, you were just a pup during that time. So Tom Waddle was slow, white, and could catch everything in sight. So I used to love playing wide receiver, used to love playing backyard football, catching passes and everything. And Tom Waddle would always go high up into the air. Well, not high up into the air, but, the white men can't jump. It doesn't always apply to every white man, but Tom Waddle used to be able to get up there, stretch out, and he would just get split in half by a safety or a linebacker every time. But he always caught the ball. And as a kid, I loved Tom Waddle. Looking back into the 2000s, my more adulthood period, although my wife may argue that, I loved Forte. Matt Forte is a great example of being steady and really a solid running back when he was always kind of doubted. So Bears, it'd be kid, Waddle, adult, probably Matt Forte.
about? Man, those are great reasons and great role models to have, I think, for sure. For me, and I think obviously, given that Derek Jeter is my hero, my idol, the guy I wanted to be when I grew up. Um, Moments turn into memories, and what a player does in those moments truly defines them and makes them more, at least more memorable to me, and something I truly appreciate. Someone being clutch. Obviously, Derek Jeter came out in the clutch so many times. And I'm not saying this player is comparable to Derek Jeter, because as far as talent and consistency, not the case. But I tried to come up with a player that would make me feel a certain type of way for football. And like, yeah, the Giants have had a lot of great players in their franchise's history, but I don't remember really Lawrence Taylor. It was a little bit before my time, and he had personal issues, not the greatest role model in the world. Michael Strahan got into the Hall of Fame. I was very happy about Michael Strahan getting into the Hall of Fame. He's the second greatest Giant that ever lived. You see Michael Strahan ever, and I think he would have been a worthy pick for this. But to me, as I mentioned earlier, my age, I was 12 years old, 13 years old when this guy was drafted to the Giants. He gave me two of the best days of my life, and I might get made fun of for this. I do not care. Eli Manning means so much to me and my family for two reasons. I mean, he made us feel ways that we never felt before. And to me, like any fan base, any fan of a team would sign up for a guy to help you win two Super Bowls. Ask any Chiefs fan. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in 50 years. They would sign up for a guy winning the Super Bowl twice, let alone against a Boston team. When you're living in New York, you hate that city. Like, trust me, you hate them. And one of those times they were undefeated. They were the greatest team ever. The other time, 4 years later, they're ready for revenge. And by all means, the greatest quarterback-coach combination of all time. Eli Manning did it twice. I can't say that it's not Eli Manning. I have loved Eli Manning for the last 16 years. It didn't end the way I would have liked, but at the end of the day, if Eli Manning gets voted into the Hall of Fame, trust me, I will be so happy.
Yeah, that's a great call because I like Eli myself. I think he's a sure Hall of Famer. You can't write the history of the NFL without including Eli in that story. He's been that important to the events.
Yeah.
And the timing of all, and it just kind of hit me when you were talking about that. That was kind of like, it wasn't fresh off of it, but that, Yankees up 3-0 and Boston comes back from 4-3, that whole evil empire feeling. And then you guys get the ultimate revenge. Like it's not, in a championship that's not the final championship. Like the Super Bowl was it. And not only did you do it
Yeah.
once, but you did it twice as severe underdogs. So
Yeah.
kudos to Eli. That's a great pick.
And I mean, yeah, never the greatest player, never the best player in the league, kind of in the shadow of his older brother. Like, I understand all of that, but you can't take away what someone means to you. And unfortunately, in my family, football is a religion, and it means so much to all of us that he brought us all together and gave us those two games, and we'll take those to the grave. So, all right, non-Bears, you got a great non-Bear for us?
Yeah, as a kid, I was a defensive player that wanted to be a wide receiver. So this next pick, for those of who knew me growing up, I loved Art Monk. I
Mm-hmm.
thought Art Monk, if he would have played in today's NFL, he would hold some decent records. He may not hold Jerry Rice's records, but he may have some obscure records that Jerry couldn't or didn't want to break. But I loved Art Monk, classy human being, played for Washington and the Jets. I just loved him. He was reliable. He caught everything that was thrown his way. And, as a kid seeing that, being a Bears fan growing up wasn't always the easiest. So you kind of had to pick teams in the 90s. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I know the Bears are done, so let me go see what this team's doing. And, Washington was on a lot, especially against Dallas. And I really didn't like Dallas that much as a child. So,
Who did?
yeah, Art Monk was one that stood out for me. Always had big games against the Cowboys.
I mean, one of the all-time great wide receivers in NFL history. Certainly a worthy idol for sure. So the first two jerseys I owned when I was a child, I had a Tiki Barber jersey and I had a Jeremy Shockey jersey. But I played wide receiver in football. I wasn't a very good one, but I aspired to be much greater than I was. For me, and he was already mentioned in the comments, and he's been mentioned by you already, but I love Jerry Rice. I mean, I caught the tail end of his career even, but I think that I'm as much of a student of the game as anyone, that there was not a greater player in the history of the sport than Jerry Rice. You talk about the records that he has. He has all but like two receiving records. His excellence in his route running, his hands. I tried to catch the ball one-handed every practice and got yelled at like, Hammond, you can't even catch the ball with two hands. Like, I'm just trying to be Jerry Rice. So to me, I didn't care how I loved his confidence. I didn't take it as cockiness or arrogance. I just thought he knew he was that good. He was Michael Jordan playing football. He was that great. Obviously, you've never seen a wide receiver have that impact, other than maybe Randy Moss. Obviously, we talked about him already. And I think all things considered, he is one of the two greatest players in the history of the sport. Him and Lawrence Taylor, obviously, I think those are the two guys that you could say that are the best. And his impact on the sport has certainly been felt, considering how much he and those Bill Walsh 49ers changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't rebuttal that. Um, you talk about players that transcend sports. I think Jerry Rice was one of those guys. I remember watching those Rice-A-Roni commercials, and who else could you have on those commercials other than Jerry Rice? It was a match made in heaven. I often like to refer to Jerry Rice as the Michael Jordan of football. He had that
Yeah.
big of impact.
Yeah, he really did. I remember I telling my dad that he was my favorite player, and he kind of got mad that it wasn't a Giant. But I remember he got me a Jerry Rice jersey, and I still have it. So I think it's my only non-Giants football jersey, and I still love Jerry to this day. All right, so like I said, we next week we will have a Super Bowl preview. We were going to break this baby down like no one has ever broke down the Super Bowl before. Matt and I are going to watch more tape that exists. I'm very excited. I think you echo the sentiments that this game could be potentially to be has the potential to be an all-time great Super Bowl. Any parting thoughts about the game before we preview it next week?
I would just say the newly minted Hall of Famer for the Frick Award, Hawk Harrelson, has a saying, strap it down because it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I can't wait for media day next week. I'm really looking forward to some of the storylines that are going to develop. Looking forward to all those prop bets. Pretty decent halftime show too if you like J-Lo. I'm sure a lot of the guys on our group are fans. Let's put it at that. If you missed some of our podcasts earlier this week, Felipe sat down with Katie last night in Pop Culture Life to talk about some video games and some cartoons. It was a really great show.
Yep.
Stay tuned. We're going to have plenty of shows for coming up for the rest of the week. We'll have baseball, I'm sure, with the Hall of Fame happening. I'm sure we'll have a show coming up. I'm sure Vince and Henry will tackle more on my hero, my GOAT, Derek Jeter. But yeah, stick with us in Football Life. We're going to have a great show for you guys next week before the Super Bowl. Be sure to follow us on YouTube to keep track of all of our shows. We appreciate all of the love and support that you guys give us every single show, every single week. Looking forward to next week. Matt, it was good talking to you. Until next time.
As always, Randy, have a good one.
You too.